Hey guys, and welcome to Should You Buy It, where all we do is talk a little bit about the game and whether or not we think it's worth the cost.
I got wiped out too.
Go away. Fly away. APC.
In this episode, we'll be playing Squad, the tactical FPS military simulator game where you and your squad of up to 8 other players will work together in coordination with the rest of your team in order to win a 50v50 objective-based game.
The first question that we always cover in these videos is what stage of development is the game in? And in this case, Squad is currently in full release and available on PC for $50.
So what exactly is the game? Well, Squad is an extremely team-oriented FPS with a realistic modern take on the armies of today. You will be fighting it out in all sorts of different battlefields, vehicles, and squad makeups.
First, let's talk about the level of realism within the game. If you were to say something like Arma is one of the most realistic FPS games out there on the market currently, then I would say that Squad is arguably just a little bit less realistic than that. It still has military uniforms, scopes, weapons, vehicles, and maps that all represent its many different playable factions. For an example, if you're playing as the US military, then you will most likely have a weapon that the US military uses, such as the M4 or the M1 Abrams tank. The unrealistic nature of the game comes in the form of things like the bandage, which each player will have upon spawning in and can be used to revive a downed ally within a certain time period. Obviously though, a simple bandage is not going to be enough to save you from being mowed down by enemies over and over again.
The game also has maps that are inspired by many different places and battles around the world. For an example, you might be fighting in the streets of Fallujah in Iraq, or a large open space with a white snowy backdrop like the map Goose Bay. These maps can dramatically change the way your team might try to win the game as well. For example, on a close quarters map like Fallujah, vehicles will still play a big role, but they aren't as impactful as they are on other maps such as Goose Bay, with long open spaces for them to mow down infantry.
Speaking of which, infantry is probably going to be the main way in which you play Squad. Your squad can have up to 9 players in it, but it does have a limited amount of each loadout. For an example, each full squad of 9 players is allowed to have 2 medics within it. This means that once that role or any other is full, no one else in your squad will be able to use it. There are also many other roles such as anti-tank, machine gunners, and grenadier, all of which will play a vital role in your squad's success. However, arguably the most important part of your squad is going to be the squad leader.
Squad leaders are extremely important for a number of different reasons. First and foremost is that you will be expected to give orders to your squad. This means if you don't give your squad orders and communicate what you want them to do, then you are likely going to have everyone either leave your squad or simply go off and do their own thing, which will make your squad significantly less effective. As squad leader, you are also the only one that can set down respawn points for not only your squad, but for everyone else to spawn on as well.
Of course, there are those players who choose to specialize in different things, such as driving tanks, commanding the whole team itself, or just flying helicopters. Although in each of these roles you are likely to be a squad leader, you may choose to do some of them without anybody else in your squad. For an example, as a helicopter pilot, you may be responsible for flying resources and other players to forward positions, and thus you may not want to have a whole 8 players that you have to lead while you're trying to do that.
Now the game also has 3 different voice channels which play a very important role. You have proximity voice, where all nearby allies can hear you, squad voice, where all members of your squad no matter their distance can hear you, and command voice, which is only accessible to the squad leaders. Command chat is extremely important as it's where your team will coordinate its attacks, defenses, and plans. Your squad leader will then relay a lot of this information back to you in order to help reduce the amount of people chatting on one voice channel.
Finally, let's talk about how you actually win in a game before we move on. To win a game of Squad, you will need to reduce the enemy team's tickets down to 0. This can be done in a number of different ways, such as killing a player, which will reduce their team's ticket by 1, taking out vehicles, which can reduce their tickets by up to 15, and taking enemy objectives, which can help you gain up to 60 tickets. There are of course more ways to gain and lose tickets, but these are just the primary ones you're going to experience. This means that even though Squad is an FPS, it is extremely tactical and strategic. Therefore, a good plan and teamwork will often prevail over individual player skill.
Now, before we move into the pros and cons, we would like to mention one of our favorite places to buy games, which is Humble Bundle. Now, aside from the fact that you can purchase basically any game for PC and console all in one place, and the fact that becoming a Humble Bundle member will earn you tons of free games every month and give you great discounts on purchases, Humble Bundle also gives you the ability to donate to a great cause and help support this channel. If you are interested in getting some great deals on games while supporting charity, check out our link in the description below. With that being said, first up for the pros is the sense of immersion. There are so many things that help to immerse you into each game of Squad. I could sit here and explain what it feels like, but I think it's better just to go ahead and show you.
7, you got command squad coming to assist you guys. 6, can you hold out? Everybody else hold radio tower.
Tire on the other side.
God save the queen, lads!
I can't hear anything you're saying with this motherfucker.
After that is the voice chat system. As we talked about earlier, voice chat is divided up into several different channels. This creates an automatic sense of what should be communicated into each channel, such as directional callouts in proximity and orders in squad chat. Next up for the pros is the overall balance of the game. While the game definitely isn't 100% perfect in its balance, it certainly hits the nail on the head when trying to make it feel like regardless of what role you're playing, you are impacting the success of the team as a whole. One thing that the game does extremely well is limit the roles that can be used per squad, so you don't have 20 medics and 20 anti-tank players running around. And lastly for the pros is that the game feels realistic, but not so realistic that it takes the fun out of the game. For example, rather than requiring 10 medical items to revive a teammate, all you need is a bandage. Each player has a limited amount of these in order to keep the sense of not having unlimited deaths. However, if you do play the medic role, you're the only one that can restore a player's HP to full.
Now for the cons. First up for the cons is that the game currently has a pretty big learning curve. What I mean by this is that there are a lot of new players that complain about things like uniforms. In this game, it's not always easy to tell a friendly from an enemy due to the uniform they're wearing. For an example, if you look at Russian soldiers, you'll notice they're wearing almost entirely green. However, if you look at Canadian soldiers, they're actually wearing almost the exact same pattern with just ever so subtle differences. This is just one of the reasons as to why the game has such a steep learning curve, with many other things contributing to it. Now, our last con today is that the game arguably requires a mic. Now, a lot of people will say this game doesn't require it, you don't absolutely have to have it, but there are many servers that will just kick you for not having one. There are also many squads and players that just won't play with you if you don't have one, and that's just because this game focuses so much on teamwork and coordination. So if you do decide to play squad, I highly recommend, even if it's a cheap one, that you get yourself a microphone.
So now it's time for the rating for the game, and when we rate games, we want to get 1 hour of enjoyment out of every $1 that we spend on the game. So for this game in particular, in squad, we would want to get roughly 50 hours of enjoyment out of the $50 that we spent. And after putting over 24 played hours into this game, we give it 9 out of 10 potatoes.
Squad was an extremely realistic experience with none of the overbearing, non-fun realism mechanics that many other similar games suffer from. Squad is more realistic than Call of Duty, more team-oriented than Battlefield, and more balanced than many other milsim games. Unfortunately, with this being a milsim, it still suffers from a steep learning curve if you're not already familiar with military armaments. With that being said though, we still feel that Squad is without a doubt worth the cost.
Before you guys go, thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy the video, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe for more survival game content. A big shout out to all of our members and subscribers, and don't forget to check out our links in the description below for things like our music library and Epic Games creator code, as these are just ways for you to help support the channel. Otherwise, thank you again so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.